Hey, what's up guys? Zen Hailing here, and I'm answering a question from the internet and from a text, and it's basically somebody who's a fighter, and they write, hey, I'm pretty sure I've been holding my breath for years from unmitigated stress, and I believe it's what might be leading to feeling anxious, and I hate using that word, but anyway, am I alone? Is this common? And can I retrain the brain and subconscious mind like to breathe daily at a better pace and draw and rhythm? And then I hope you're well. So yeah, actually, I told him this is very common, and for me it all goes back to the mechanics of breathing. When somebody says take a breath, everybody's saying breathe, breathe. One breath is your inhale, the pause, your exhale, and the pause. So one breath is inhale, pause. Now you've got that oxygen, you're pausing the breath, it's trapping that oxygen in there, it's bathing the body, invigorating the body. Then you have your exhale. Pause. So that's one breath. The exhale, you're getting rid of the CO2. And the pause on the back end, that's really when the fight or flight of the mind is coming in. So if you're a competitive athlete, you're trying to meditate or deal with some PTSD, that's where you're attaching a different thought. You're letting all your breath out, and just like being underwater, you're retraining the mind with a different mental fluctuation. So that's a little bit about just the mechanics. The inhale, pause, exhale, pause, one breath. Now the pause in yoga, and yogis know this, when you pause the breath, you still the fluctuations of the mind. So the 60,000 thoughts every day that we have, the chattering mind, the 23,000 breaths. So at the end of the day, when we're laying in bed and we can't shut off the mind, it's then explore the pause. The pause, the magic's in the pause. Pause the breath, still the fluctuations of the mind. Now, where it gets tricky is the emotional excitement of the day. So during every day, the emotional excitement, the stresses of life, it hijacks our breathing rate, making it irregular. So what's that mean? Well, it's hijacking our breathing rate, making us hold our breath. And that even happens not just with the emotional excitement, but also when we're at the point of heightened concentration, even threading a needle, or, I used to work long periods of time on a computer or creative writing, and we're so deep into the screen, in our texts, so deep in thought into that a lot of times we're unconsciously holding our breath. I just dealt with somebody who was a crane operator, and when they would work the crane over top of a real sticky point and not wanting to smash people underneath it, they would hold their breath, and then at the end of the shift, they were so tired. It's because you're then holding your breath all shift. So this happens for people that are working at computer stations for long periods of time, working at desk jobs. And what you need to do is be in control of the pause. Remember, the emotional excitement is hijacking your breathing rate, making it irregular, meaning making you pause the breath. So if you can then do conscious controlled breathing to check that emotional excitement in the moment when it's happening. So if somebody's coming at you and it's, like the guys used to fight Mike Tyson, they were so nervous, they would hold their breath and just be swinging, and instead of, using their breath, using the expulsion breaths like normal boxers or fighters would do, they forgot all their training. So that's where they're getting hijacked in that moment, and we get hijacked all the time. That's why you get up to do the speech and you forget your words, because the emotional excitement that you're worried, now you've already practiced your speech, you know the words, but now you're nervous, you have to get up and do public speaking in front of people, and that's one of the #1 fears of people. And then what happens? You forget your words, you go blank, you're like looking for your cue cards where you know this content, you know the words, you practiced it, you studied it, it came from your heart. So again, the emotional excitement hijacks our breathing rate, making it irregular. So if you can halt that emotional excitement, and again, it goes back to the mechanics of breathing. The inhale, the pause, the exhale, the pause equals one breath. And the power and the magic is in the pause, but being in control of the pause. So when I'm dealing with athletes for pre-game nerves and anxiety, you know, a lot of that is just like asthma. We're over-breathers, so that the 60,000 thoughts and the 23,000 breaths, here's all day long. And then it's, I can't take a breath, I can't inhale, because you've got so much in there. So just like when they're coming off in between a shift, you know, a long hockey shift or a long soccer shift, and they're, you know, and the coach is yelling, breathe, Johnny, breathe. And all the parents are like, breathe, I told you to breathe. Well, they think they should be inhaling, but what they should be doing is forcing that exhale out, forcing out that CO2 to make room for the greater inhale. And that's going to be the same if you're sitting at your cubicle and you're forgetting to breathe. Most likely, you're already over-breathing, so it's doing a big exhale, exhaling out the bad air, exhaling out to create room for the greater inhale, to create room now for that oxygen to invigorate the body, to actually help to balance the pH levels of your blood, which is the oxygen, the CO2, and the acidosis in the blood. And the acidosis translates into inflammation if you're just sitting at a cubicle or if you're older, and then that's disease. That's the heart disease, that's gout, that's inflammation, that's kidney stones. But if you're a fighter or a competitive athlete, that's actually lactic acid. So that's the ability to then, you know, go a different round. And that's why fighters do the expulsion breath, you know, and they'll mainly have a mouthpiece in, so they're not able to do the, you know, but they can do the expulsion breath out the, and then that's making sure that they don't over inhale. And it's also that expulsion breath, you're tightening up the abdomen. And in Zen breathing, in Zen meditation, that's all about bringing subtle tension into the tendon, the midline, the hara, to actually, you know, take control of the mind again. So the chattering mind, the monkey mind, the nervous mind, you've got to bring it into the body. You have to bring that subtle tension into the hara, the midline, the tendon, you know, basically your navel area. And just that little subtle tension then starts to create that switch, starts to communicate with the brain. You know, there's a voluntary and involuntary area of the brain that's working with the body. And we naturally do this when we step outside to bear the burden of the freezing cold. So it's, you know, we're all of a sudden, we're in our body, we're in our abdominal region, and boom, it gives us mental and physical stability. So I can't say it enough, to be in control of the pause, to also make sure that you're not over breathing, and when you think you are, just to really get rid of that CO2. Another breathing technique to get rid of that is bamboo exhales. So that's a Zen breathing technique where you're basically taking a normal inhale in, but then you're doing, kind of putting your teeth together and your lips together, and you're milking out the exhale, and I'll demonstrate. You just do a normal inhale. The exhales, so that exhale, I did a little bit intermittent, but it creates room now. I got rid of all that CO2 and created room for a nice big inhale to invigorate my body, to wake my body up, and to get rid of that anxiety, that stress, that, you know, oh, the pre-game nerves or that pre-performance nerves. If you're an actor or you're somebody who's a singer or somebody has to get on stage, you know, it's all the same thing that's happening with the physical body. So I love the bamboo exhales technique. That's one that I'll be walking around all day long like, and you see it when we're frustrated. It's the same as the body naturally does a lot of these things. So, you know, it's knowing that you have these breathing techniques in your toolbox, and a lot of times the emotional excitement's hijacking your breathing rate and your mind, and you can't even remember, oh, I have these tools in my toolbox. But if you can do them enough times, you can practice these things, then when you're getting stressed out, when the emotional excitement of life is in your face, you can maybe remember, oh, that's in my toolbox. I need to pull that right now and exhale, or I'm holding my breath, and then you're just really, you know, trying to breathe from low to high, filling your belly up, not inhale up here where you're already in fight or flight, but literally with your belly where it's then you're filling it all the way up, using all three parts of your respiratory function, all three parts of your lungs. So anyway, that's just a little bit about how to check emotional excitement, a little bit about the mechanics, and what to deal with in the moment. All right, man, this has been Zen Healing Tim. Breathe well, stay flexible, keep healing, keep grounded into God.